Hey, welcome back. We're in our textbook, the Adobe Photoshop CC book for digital photographers by Scott Kelby. We're working in chapter 8 and we're working on the Dreamy focus effect for people and landscapes. This is an effect that Scott gets asked about a lot because he uses it a lot, he indicates. The particular thing he gets asked is how do you get that look where your image looks sharp but soft. He says it's simple, don't really tell anybody. It's as simple because I prefer that people thought I had to pull off some serious Photoshop magic. So for step 1, the sharpness of this effect comes from sharpening the image right up front. So he usually saves this effect for when I'm about to save the file. In other words, he usually saves the sharpening for the end, but in this case there's another move that happens after the sharpening. So we're going to start with the sharpening. First go under the filter menu, under Sharpen, and use Unsharp Mask. When the dialog appears, we are going to enter 120%, set the radius to 1 pixel, and the threshold to 3, which is the same that we used it for last. I don't know if that's his default setting, but anyway, that's what we're using this image as well. Now duplicate the sharpened layer by pressing Command or Control J, depending on what system you're on. You can see that did duplicate that layer. And then now we're going to go to the filter menu. We're going to go under Blur, and we're going to choose Gaussian Blur. And again, when the dialog box appears, we're going to enter 25 pixels for the radius. And he says you may have to go, ooh, geez, that really did blur it, up to 35 pixels or higher if you have a 24 megapixel camera or higher. Don't worry so much about the number, just make sure that your image looks as least as blurry as this one does. And yeah, mine definitely looks that blurry. I wonder if I should back off on that a little bit. That seems to be more in line with how he's got his set, and that's only at 10.1 pixels, and he indicated 25 pixels. So I'm going to leave it here. Then step 4, finally go to the Layers panel and change the opacity amount of the blurred layer to 30%. So again, the blurred layer, and we're going to change that to 30%. And that completes the effect. Now I know what you're thinking, Scott, seriously, is that all there is to it? Yes, it is. That's why we think it's best to keep this just between us. I'm going to turn off this layer. Oh, nice. Yeah, that is a nice effect. Okay, then we're going to have you do panoramas made crazy easy, but you are going to have to take some shots to do this exercise, so that will be part of your homework. And then we are going to go to the tilt shift effect on page 259 that I'll demo next. I'm going to do a file and I'm going to save as. This is going to be Dreamy Focus 2. Then I'm going to close this out and I am going to do a file and open. And we're going to do the tilt shift effect, which is probably right here. Now this blur filter gives you a really easy way to create the miniaturization effect that you see all over the web, where a photo is transformed to look like a tiny toy model. Well, think of it more like an architectural model. Using this filter is easy if you have the right type of photo. So ideally you'd use one where you photograph from a high point of view looking downward, and the higher you are, the steeper the angle, the better it helps sell the idea that you're looking down on a scale model. So step 1, we're going to open the image we want to apply the effect to, and to make sure that you use the right type of image, or this effect will look pretty lame. Of course, as always, you can download the image I'm using, which is obviously what I've done. Now we're going to go under the filter menu, and we're going to go under Blur, Gallery, and we're going to choose the tilt shift. Now when you use any of these filters in the blur gallery, it uses interactive on-screen controls to work with your images. It places a round pin in the center of your image where you see this. And above and below there are 2 solid lines and 2 dotted lines. The solid lines show you the area that will remain in focus, or the focus area, and the area between each solid line and the dotted line is the transition, where it fades from sharp to blurry. So the wider the distance between the solid and dotted lines, the longer it takes to go from sharp to totally blurry. To remove a pin, just click on it and hit the delete button. And if you're on a PC, backspace key on your keyboard. Now we're going to control the amount of blur by clicking on the gray part of the ring above the pin and by dragging around the ring. That's kind of interesting. You can see how that is an effect. As you drag, the ring turns white to show you how far you've gone, and the actual amount of blur appears in a little pop-up display that's right above the top of the ring. He drug it to 66. I dragged mine, I don't know what's correct there, to 52. He totally digs adjusting the blur right on the image this way, but if it gets on your nerves, you can use the blur slider in the Blur Tools panel that appears over the right side of your workspace. All right, when you're going for this tiny models look, I think it looks better if you compress both of the focus areas, making the in focus area smaller and the transition area smaller. So here's how. First, you're going to click on the pin and move it down and to the right. You're going to click down and to the right. And he's gone quite a ways down here, actually below this building, it looks like. And the right's almost over right here. Then click directly on the top solid line and drag inward toward the round pin in the middle. Get it pretty close, he says. Now do the same thing with the bottom solid line, moving it up toward the round pin. And then we're going to drag the center of the top dotted line in closer to the top solid line. And then we're going to drag the center of the bottom dotted line in the same manner. Now, if you want to rotate your in focus area and blur and the whole shebang, move your cursor over the white center dot on the solid line above this pin, and it will turn into a two-headed rotate arrow. You're going to click and drag on the white dot and rotate by dragging your cursor either left or right. Whoa. Oh, I didn't want to change the size, but okay. Easy peasy. There are a few more options you'll want to know about. The first is the distortion slider over in the Blur Tools panel under Tilt Shift. This lets you change the shape of the blur. If you turn on the symmetric distortion checkbox, it makes your blur look really bad, really bad and distorted. He personally hasn't come up with a reason why to ever turn this on. so he does not use that. Another set of controls is in the Blur Effects panel. The top one lets you increase the highlights in the blue area, which can be nice for some outdoor portraits, but it's very sensitive. If you drag too far, it looks like someone dropped a highlights grenade onto your image, so you want to use it sparingly. Just so I can see what... Oh, yikes. Okay. Step 6, there are a few more controls up in the options bar. One is the focus amount. It's set at 100%, sharp focus by default. The lower you set it, the more it makes the in focus area blurry. And again, he doesn't use that. Next is the Save Mask to Channels checkbox, which lets you save the area you've masked using this tool to a channel in the Channels panel in case you want to edit it later or add noise or remove all the color, etc. And if you reload that channel, the masked area becomes selected. And then finally, there's a high quality checkbox which gives you a better quality blur, but it also takes longer to apply. Some handy shortcuts. You want to press P to hide the blur. Oh, nice. And then you press P to bring it back again. Press and hold H to hide your round pin. And then you click OK at the end of the options bar. And here's the final image with the tilt shift applied. Okay, and that's it for these two exercises. I will be back in a moment to assign your homework for the chapter and maybe do one more exercise.